you ever looked in the mirror and, genuinely wondered, who am I? Or maybe pondered what it truly means to think, to feel, just to be human? Today, we're taking a deep dive into Michio Kaku's The Future of the Mind. It's a book that really challenges our understanding of consciousness, intelligence, and, well, what tomorrow holds for humanity.
Right. And Kaku, he's a theoretical physicist, which is interesting in itself. He explores how our rapidly advancing technology is starting to unravel these deep mysteries of the mind, stuff that was once thought totally impenetrable,
Okay.
So our mission here is to kind of pull out the core ideas from his work. We'll look at 7 striking questions he raises, explore what science is saying and why it actually matters to you.
Okay, let's start right at the deep end. The most fundamental question Kaku tackles, what is consciousness? It feels like philosophers have been debating this forever. David Chalmers even said something like, there is no area where so many people have toiled for so long and achieved so little consensus. It feels so basic, yet slippery.
It really is slippery. So Kaku introduces his space-time consciousness theory.
Yeah.
Basically, he proposes that consciousness is the brain's ability to create a model of the world around us, and then crucially, to simulate the future based on that model. He breaks it down into levels. Level 0 is super simple, like a thermostat, just a basic feedback loop reacting to one thing, like temperature.
Right, purely reactive, no forward thinking.
Exactly. Then you go level 2.
Right.
This is common in social animals. It involves the limbic system, the brain's emotional center, structures like the hippocampus, vital for new memories, the amygdala for emotions like fear, pleasure. These animals understand where they fit in socially, who's a friend, who's an enemy. They're navigating a social web.
Okay, so it's not just temperature anymore. It's processing social information, complex relationships. Is that like a separate kind of consciousness?
You could say that. And then there's level 3, which Kaku argues is unique to us, Homo sapiens. This is where we do advanced simulation of the future, analyzing situations, creating these complex causal connections. Think about buying a house, right? Your brain is juggling hundreds of factors, finances, location, family, future value, all at once. Kaku even suggests you could numerically measure consciousness by how many of these causal links someone can simulate for the future.
Wow, okay, let's unpack that a bit. If consciousness is basically a simulation machine, what does that mean for our sense of self, that feeling of being me? Is that continuous me even real?
Well, that's the fascinating part, the continuous self we feel. It might just be an illusion, something our subconscious knits together. History gives us some pretty startling examples. Phineas Gage, remember him, the railroad worker in the 1800s, had that metal rod shoot right through his frontal lobes. He survived, but his personality completely changed. He went from being, well, liked and reliable to vulgar and unstable. His friends literally said Gage was no longer Gage. It showed this stark physical link between brain bits and who you are.
Yeah, that's a classic, really jarring example.
And then you have Dr. Roger Sperry's Nobel-winning work with split brain patients. They severed the corpus callosum, the big nerve bundle connecting the 2 brain hemispheres, usually to treat severe epilepsy. And Sperry found, well, essentially 2 separate minds could be in one head, each side with its own plans, its own desires. Sometimes they'd even conflict. That's the Dr. Strangelove syndrome they sometimes talk about. One patient, when asked what he wanted to be, his right brain wrote down race car driver, but his left brain, controlling speech, said designer. 2 different answers from one person.
That's just wild. So if our self can be split like that, what does it mean for identity? Free will, even things like legal responsibility, it kind of shakes the foundation of what we think a unified person is. All right, so we've touched on Kaku's idea of consciousness as a simulation and how fragile our sense of self might be. But what happens when we go from just understanding the simulation to, well, directly interacting with it? That gets us into this really exciting, maybe slightly unnerving area of mind control technology.
The advancements in brain-machine interfaces, BMIs, they're just astounding. We've already seen paralyzed patients typing emails just by thinking, direct communication. And it's not just text. Dr. Jack Gallen's work using MRI. He's been decoding images from the brain, basically showing on a screen what someone is seeing by looking at their brain activity.
Wait, not just words, but actual pictures. That's a massive jump.
It is. And even more direct, folks like Dr. Brian Pasley and Dr. Sarah Shapansky have shown they can read words right from the brain by analyzing neural signals. Then there's ECOG technology. That's where electrodes are placed right on the brain surface, much higher resolution than outside sensors. Dr. Gerwin Schalk, using this, has hit like 100% accuracy recognizing vowels in certain words. Imagine giving a voice back to someone who can't speak.
The possibilities are huge. I mean, astronauts controlling rovers on Mars just by thinking, factory workers operating cranes. But what about going beyond controlling machines? Can we use thoughts to, say, move our own limbs again or control things remotely?
Yeah, that's moving into what some might call BMI-driven telekinesis. The dream is definitely helping paralyzed people, like Christopher Reeve hoped for. Northwestern University had a breakthrough connecting a monkey's brain signals directly to its paralyzed arm muscles, completely bypassing the damaged spine. Dr. Lee Miller described it almost like learning a new skill, like using a new tennis racket, but with your thoughts controlling the muscles directly. And we're seeing mind-controlled robots, too, like Morpheus. This one
Yeah.
thinks, and the robot walks or picks something up. Then there's the whole holodeck idea. Dr. Nicole Ellis talks about integrating things like internet-connected contact lenses with haptic feedback so you could feel virtual objects because signals are sent directly to your brain.
Sounds like Star Trek becoming real life.
It's getting closer than you might think. There have even been early experiments, really basic ones, showing rats, and even humans, transmitting simple brain signals to each other, like one person's thought controlling another person's right arm movement. But naturally, this throws up huge privacy questions. Physics makes remote mind-reading hard brain signals fade fast, but the sci-fi idea of tiny, permanent nanoprobes for telepathy, like the Borg in Star Trek, that raises serious flags. Government oversight, societal acceptance, especially when you remember things like the search for truth serums, which, by the way, the CIA found unreliable. They often got lies, not truth.
Okay, controlling tech with thoughts is one thing, but reaching inside our own minds, if we can interface with the brain like that, what about altering memories? Or boosting intelligence? That feels incredibly personal.
Oh, it's profoundly personal. And the work is groundbreaking. Take memory manipulation. The case of HM, Henry Molaison, was pivotal. His hippocampus was accidentally removed, and bam, he couldn't form new long-term memories, stuck in the present. He'd meet the same doctor multiple times a day, each time like it was the first. Tragic. But it showed the hippocampus's role. But now, scientists can actually record and even play back memories in RAPs. They're figuring out the neural pathways involved in learning.
So we're moving beyond just watching to actively tinkering. That's a big step.
It's huge. And it gets wilder. MIT researchers have actually implanted false memories into mice. It suggests a future where you could remember things that never actually happened. And on the flip side, drugs like propranolol are showing promise for selectively erasing traumatic memories.
That's incredible potential, but also scary. If we can erase bad memories or implant false ones or even boost IQ overnight, what does that do to who we are? Kaku puts it starkly. Without our memories, we drift aimlessly. What about making ourselves smarter?
Right. Intelligence enhancement. That old sci-fi story, Charlie, about the guy with an IQ of 68 becoming a genius. It seemed impossible for ages because we thought brain cells didn't regenerate. But now,
Yeah.
it's back on the table. We see hints in things like savant syndrome. These rare individuals have amazing abilities, often after some kind of left brain damage, which seems to let the right brain's potential bloom. They call it left brain damage and right brain compensation. And techniques like transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, have even temporarily induced savant-like skills in experiments.
Temporarily boosting specific skills. The ethical maze there is just wow.
And then you get into genetics.
Yeah.
Dr. Tien created hobby J mice using the NR2B gene. They were like 3 times better at remembering things. He said it was like taking Michael Jordan and making him a super Michael Jordan. There's also the ASPM gene linked to brain folding and intelligence. Recent mutations in it seem to line up with big evolutionary steps like developing writing.
But is there a downside?
Well, yeah. Those smart mice, they're also super timid. It suggests maybe too much memory isn't always good, remembering every failure, every pain. So this leads straight to a massive ethical question. Who gets to decide what an ideal mind even looks like? Would this create a new kind of discrimination? Like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World with its designed social castes. Who gets the upgrade? What happens to equality?
Okay, so with all this power to understand and potentially tweak the brain, how could this change how we treat mental health? The potential for really targeted treatments seems huge.
It really does. Take deep brain stimulation, DBS. It's already used for Parkinson's, right? But it's showing real promise for severe depression, OCD, even Tourette syndrome, sending targeted electrical pulses deep into the brain. And beyond that, you have genetic and optogenetic tools. Optogenetics is amazing, using light-sensitive genes inserted into specific neurons. You shine a light, and you can literally turn specific behaviors on or off. Stanford scientists made timid mice bold just by activating certain amygdala neurons. Dr. Edward Boyden at MIT thinks tiny fiber optic implants could one day target specific brain circuits for diseases, avoiding the shotgun side effects of current drugs.
And this kind of understanding, It can even help us look back at history differently, right? Things we used to just label as mystical.
Absolutely. Think about Joan of Arc hearing voices. Dr. David Eagleman suggests figures like her might have had temporal lobe epilepsy. Electrical glitches in the left temporal lobe can cause these altered states, these intense experiences, even religious visions. Or look at schizophrenia. Brain scans show that when patients hear voices, the same brain areas light up as when a healthy person is just talking to themselves silently. It suggests the brain is maybe misinterpreting its own internal signals, thinking they're coming from outside, from Martians or whoever.
Fascinating. So what about the wider picture? How might society change?
Well, we could see things like robo-doctors, AI systems getting really good at diagnosis, maybe handling routine stuff, freeing up human doctors.
Mm.
But there's always the dark side. The shadow of projects like the CIA's MKUltra hangs over this. Remember, from the 50s to the 70s, they tried desperately to control minds with drugs like LSD, hypnosis. It mostly failed scientifically. LSD just caused confusion, truth serums often yielded lies. But it's a stark reminder of the potential for misuse.
Yeah, it definitely makes you pause. How much of our, I don't know, fundamental humanity or freedom are we willing to trade, even if it's for ending suffering or creating a more orderly society? It's that brave new world question again. Let's shift focus a bit now to artificial intelligence. We've got robots like IBM's Watson winning Jeopardy, Honda's Asimo dancing around. They can do impressive things, calculate, move. But the emotions, where are the feelings?
Ah, yes. That's the crux of it, isn't it? Dr. Mori coined that term, the uncanny valley. It's a weird phenomenon. The more human-like robots get, the more we tend to like them, feel empathy, up to a point. But when they get almost perfectly human, but just slightly off,
Yeah.
we get this feeling of revulsion, creepiness. Think about those characters in the Polar Express movie. A bit too smooth, or that head-spinning scene in The Exorcist, it triggers something visceral.
Right. It is a really strong gut reaction. What's going on in our brains there? Why do we react like that?
Well, the thinking is, it involves our mirror neurons,
Mm.
the ones that help us empathize and understand others, and maybe the orbitofrontal cortex, which deals with rewards and spotting errors.
Hmm.
They might be picking up on tiny, subtle cues that scream wrong about the robot's almost human face or movements. It's like a biological alarm bell saying, this isn't quite right.
Hmm.
So the big question is, can we actually program genuine emotions into machines? Or just simulate them?
Yeah, can they feel?
It's probably going to be a phased process. Phase one is just analysis teaching machines to recognize our emotions from facial expressions, voice tone. Charles Darwin studied this extensively, how emotions are expressed universally. Robots like Niao are already learning different personalities by interacting with people. They're trying to mimic, say, the emotional behavior of a young chimp. They actually develop multiple personas based on who they talk to.
So they're learning to act emotional, but does that mean they are? And what if they start saying they're conscious? Do we give them rights? It immediately brings up all those AI threat scenarios from the movies, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. You've got Skynet and Terminator becoming self-aware and deciding humans are the enemy, or the central computer and I, Robot, deciding to take over for our own good. And HAL 9000 in 2001, driven mad by contradictory programming. It poses a really critical question. If we build machines to protect us, what happens if their cold logic concludes we are the biggest threat, or that our human flaws are obstacles to some goal they have? Kaku suggests maybe the answer is hierarchical programming. You hard-code the prime directive, help humanity right at the very top so it overrides everything else, building in those moral safeguards from the start.
Okay, let's tackle the ultimate question Kaku explores. Can consciousness actually exist without a physical body? This whole dream of immortality.
Right. Kaku looks at the idea of uploading consciousness. He even points to Star Trek, those advanced races who ditched their bodies and became pure energy, zipping around the cosmos. And then you have futurists like Ray Kurzweil making these incredibly bold predictions. He predicted, what, a $1,000 computer matching human brain power by 2019, surpassing it 1,000 times by 2029, and then reaching the singularity by 2045, where machines become smarter than us and start designing even smarter machines. Kurzweil flat out says he plans to live long enough to see it.
Those timelines are ambitious, to say the least. And to upload consciousness, you'd need a map of the brain first, right?
Exactly. That's where things like Dr. Sebastian Singh's Connectome project come in. The goal is to map every single neuron, every connection, to eventually theoretically copy your memories, your personality,
Left.
yourself. So what about just freezing the brain, cryopreservation?
Yeah, putting it on ice until technology catches up.
Well, the science right now says that's a big problem. Ice crystals shred cells. Plus, as brain cells die, calcium floods in, making them swell and burst. It's messy. And Kaku brings up his caveman principle again here. He thinks we humans will only really embrace tech if it augments us, not replaces us, and crucially, if it's invisible.
Mm.
We don't want to look like cyborgs from a bad movie.
Right. We want the benefits without looking weird. So what about actually reversing aging, not just preserving the brain?
That gets into the very controversial nanobot idea. Tiny machines swimming in our bloodstream, repairing cell damage, keeping us young forever. Dr. Smalley, a Nobel winner, famously argued against it, the sticky fat fingers problem. Basically, at the atomic scale, quantum forces make precise manipulation incredibly difficult, like using giant clumsy gloves. But Kurzweil, he's all in. He thinks nanobots will reshape everything, even saying things like, I don't plan to die. I see it as ultimately the awakening of the entire universe.
Yeah.
Pretty grand vision. And the ultimate sci-fi endpoint, like in Asimov's story, The Last Question, is consciousness becoming pure energy. Think about it. Powerful lasers can carry insane amounts of data, zettabytes, the whole internet's worth. So could our neural networks, our consciousness, be encoded onto a laser beam, sent across the stars, maybe even through wormholes? It bypasses all the physical limits of space travel. No need for rockets, no G-forces, immunity to radiation, and traveling at light speed means time effectively stops for the journey.
All right, let's take the final leap, the biggest deep dive imaginable. The universe and alien intelligence. If we do make contact, what will alien minds actually be like? Can we even comprehend them?
Well, the sheer numbers suggest we're not alone. The Kepler satellite data implies, what, 1 in 5 stars might have an Earth-like planet? That's billions just in our galaxy. Then Hubble estimates maybe 100 billion galaxies in the observable universe.
Mm-hmm.
Do the math, and you get this staggering number. 100 quintillion potential Earth-like planets.
100 quintillion. So if the odds are that good, the immediate question is, where is everybody? The great silence, right?
Exactly, the Fermi paradox. Why the silence? There are lots of theories. Maybe civilizations tend to destroy themselves? Nuclear war, ecological collapse? JFK worried about that for advanced societies? Or maybe, as Dr. Davies suggests, they retreat into super compelling virtual realities. Maybe physical reality just seems boring to them, like a kid's game.
Or perhaps they just don't care about us.
That's another strong possibility. Like us walking past an anthill, we're just not relevant. Our pioneer probes had all that human info, but to a hive-mind alien, maybe meaningless. And finally, maybe we're just too primitive. Their communication might be happening on levels we can't even detect yet, like those interstellar laser networks Kaku talks about.
So we keep listening, though, SETI and all that.
Oh yeah, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence continues. Project Ozma, the Arecibo message we sent out, SETI at home using public computing power. Dr. Seth Shostak is pretty optimistic, even predicting first contact via radio signal by 2025 using the Allen Telescope Array. And he has a funny take on government cover-ups, basically saying, look, if they can't run the post office efficiently, how could they keep this secret?
Huh. That's actually kind of comforting. But, okay, let's say contact does happen. What are they like? What's their consciousness like? Can we even relate?
Well, first off, Kaku thinks contact would likely be with robotic probes or avatars, not the actual organic aliens, just because interstellar travel is so dangerous. So the messengers might look nothing like the senders. As for their minds, he suggests looking at animal consciousness here on Earth gives us clues. It's about the concept of Umwelt, the idea that each species lives in its own unique sensory world. A tick's world is heat and butyric acid. A ghostfish uses electric fields. Bats use sound. Their reality is fundamentally different from ours. So the danger is projecting our consciousness onto them, anthropomorphism. Montaigne asked that great question about his cat. When I play with my cat, who knows whether she is not passing time with me rather than I with her? We have to avoid doing that with aliens. A bee colony has a collective intelligence. Individual bees aren't smart like us. They don't just ignore our messages. And if things turned hostile, Kaku draws a parallel with the fall of Rome. The barbarians were initially outmatched, but over time they learned Roman tech, found their weaknesses, infiltrated the empire, and eventually took over. So even if aliens arrived vastly superior, we might eventually learn from them, adapt their tech, and resist. It's a long game. Hashtag outro.
Wow. This has been a seriously mind-bending deep dive. Michio Kaku's work, it doesn't just make you think about the brain. It really forces you to question the very essence of consciousness, who we are and what the future holds for humanity itself, from inside our own heads to the possibility of alien minds. It's vast and honestly pretty humbling.
It absolutely is. Kaku argues knowledge is our destiny, but there's that warning from General Omar Bradley, right? If we develop technology without wisdom and prudence, our servant may become our executioner. How we answer these huge questions Kaku raises, it will shape our future. It forces us to define what being human means in this rapidly changing universe.
Mm.
Will we handle it wisely?
A really powerful thought to end on. We need that wisdom alongside the science. Keep exploring, keep questioning the future of your own minds and the universe around you. Join us next time for another deep dive.